Good afternoon, good morning, good evening from wherever you're joining me from. This is Leadership Files, and I am your host, Noah Ndlovu, broadcasting live from the great state in the United States of Indiana. Today, I'm very pleased to have Professor Mammo Muchie, who is a renowned African intellectual from Ethiopia, but he's based in South Africa. So he's going to help us understand what is happening on the African continent. We just had the AU being part of the G20, which is now G21. And we just had a conference in South Africa, the BRICS conference. So we've had some coups, others are calling them coups, others are calling them revolution or realignment with the African values. So to help us understand what is happening on the African continent is Professor Mammo Muchie. So I know he's pressed on time, but we're just thankful that he made a few moments to share with us. So without wasting time, let's join the professor. South Africa had a conference, which is called the BRICS Conference. Share with our listeners, our viewers around the world, what the conference was all about and what are the new takeaways from the conference.
Yes, the first time in this conference of the BRICS, what's interesting is that they wanted to include more members. So they want to build the BRICS to be stronger. So they have now invited a number of countries from Argentina, from Latin America, from the Middle East. They have invited Saudi Arabia and others, and then from Africa, Egypt, and Ethiopia. But the interesting question you asked is, we in Africa, we still have not united very well. And when we enter into different members of the United Nations, about 54 states are in Africa are members. Now we're joining BRICS. Then, as you rightly put it now, the Africa Union is joining, like the European Union is also a member of the G20. When we are doing all these things, are we going to act and really take action in such a way that all Africa will benefit? That issue is still a challenge. We're not yet clear how this membership, joining all these organizations, actually can produce something that will make Africans actually achieve. The problem is in the United Nations, we are members there, but many countries from Africa, but the influence we have is very limited. And now, when we're joining BRICS, if a few of the African countries join, it also creates division among Africans. And meaning, again, all the countries are included. But the important point is, will they be able to action taken by the African Union be the one that all the states also accept? And so it works for all of them. We're not sure. So the important thing, to be honest with you, the necessary condition for Africa is that all African countries must first come together and have a policy, a clear policy about how to act together to deal with and respond to the global economy in such a way that Africa benefits rather than Africa loses. Something like this is what must be done first. That approach has not been done up until now. Because we have that problem, even though joining the BRICS and being invited, being accepted is not, being welcomed is fine, but in terms of tangible outcome, in terms of benefits, and we're not clear. So at the moment, my suggestion is that let's be more skeptical about until we know exactly after they join what benefits and achievements that that Africa has gained from membership of these organizations. Our biggest problem is that even when we are in the African Union, when certain actions come, we act. So on any aspect, we don't move together. In fact, we, as you rightly said, we are in many major difficulties, like coup d'etats, many things. Look what's happening now. From 2020 to now, 8 coup d'etats happened in what's called the Francophone countries. So we still are divided. Colonialism has not completely left Africa yet. So because we have this challenge, I'm just saying to you that the membership to BRICS of a few African countries might also create division among Africa. In fact, the African Union may be affected. In the G20, the whole of African Union is joined, but will the African states, will they act together too? That's not clear. As they are not doing it in the United Nations, will they continue to do it also in these different organizations they enter? That is a very interesting issue that we need to reflect on. That's my suggestion. Thank you very much.
If you're just joining us, we're talking to Professor Mammo Muchie, giving his perspectives on what is happening in Africa. So Africa, the African AU, is it Africa or the African Union, which was accepted into the G21? Can you speak a little bit how that plays out? I know you touched on that, but is it the African Union making decisions as one, or is it individual countries?
Yeah, good question. The European Union is a member, is the regional organization. Mm-hmm. The African Union is now becoming a member. For the African Union to be a member, right, the invitation has come from different countries, you know, from Germany, yeah, from Russia, from China, from America, all of them, they have invited them. As you rightly put it, the African Union, all right, in the G20 now, being a member, will it be able to get benefits out of it? Is at the moment, we cannot say for clarity. The reason is the main thing why the G20 was formed was because there was a financial crisis in the 1990s. When that happened, a number of countries joined together to address the financial crisis. Now, the financial infrastructure, you know, is still not completely done. We still have World Bank, International Monetary Fund, other things like that. The Africans, on the African side, we still have a challenge in terms of also dealing with our financial system. We do not have our own currency or anything like that. So we have a serious problem. Now, the important question is whether joining the G20 now as the African Union, will we be able to build at the African financial infrastructure, a strong infrastructure that's can strengthen like the World Bank and the IMF are? Can we also have that kind of possibility? That's an issue. This is not clear because exactly will the African Union be able to have the strategy and the policy that all the other the 55 states in Africa accept? That's not clear. Will they accept it or not is not clear, because some of them are now joining BRICS, some are in the United Nations, some are the G20. So when you have when different issues come, they may not agree and disagree. For example, when the Ukraine-Russia war happened, even though the African Union is like one is the African Union, but when it came to making decisions, right, when they say Russia must withdraw from Ukraine, only 18 countries are the ones that supported this, but others abstained, and then one country like Eritrea said it opposes it. So it means even though they are in the African Union, they may not act on specific issues and policies together because the unity is still weak. That is a challenge for Africa as a whole. Africa entering into all these organizations, we don't know whether success will come or failure will come. Is not clear. That's, I mean, my doubts at the moment. We need to check it. We need to make sure, evaluate it, right? Monitor it, and see whether or not the outcome from this membership actually will produce some result that will assist Africa from its difficult problems that it continues to have. Thank you very much.
We are talking to Professor Mammo Muchie, giving his perspectives on what is happening in Africa. So we're gonna change gears a little bit and talk about West Africa before we end up in Ethiopia, as Ethiopia is celebrating the New Year. So we'll talk a little bit about that. But before we get to that, Professor, there's been a lot of unrest in West Africa. And Niger and the ECOWAS had imposed some sanctions. I don't know exactly how far they have gone. I was told that the European Union had removed, or they're in the process of changing or removing the sanctions that they had imposed initially when the coup took place. Others are calling it the coup, others are calling it realignment or revolution. And there was also a response from Guinea and also from Burkina Faso, siding with the new government. I must emphasize the new government in Niger, which has tons and tons of support from the locals on the ground. So can you share your thoughts in terms of what is happening in Niger, in Burkina Faso, in Guinea, and also the recent coup in Gabon? What is happening in these Franco-African countries?
Yes, thank you for the good question. I think the Francophone African countries are in a difficult situation. You remember the Élysée Palace in Paris actually decides on the budgets of these countries. Over 65% of their reserves are in French banks, and when they take their own, money, they pay interest to France. This is not good. So the Francophone countries are in a very difficult situation. So what is happening now is that some of them, the reason some of these coup d'etats are happening is because they wanted to be independent from France. They want to have some agency, some of them. They are trying to do it like this. Ideally, it would be nice if they could do it without a coup d'etat, by all of the Francophone countries uniting, and the African Union, on all of them uniting and saying to France, don't do this. Instead, France is still very actively engaged. And so what is happening now is, as you notice, when the coup d'etat happened in Mali, even, you know, Ghana and Nigeria and others also even supported, you see, the French side. So this is a very complicated situation. So what you are seeing is that the coup that's happening is saying they want to be independent from France. The military side, the troops, I mean, France has its own army there, right? Its own soldiers in these countries. It controls their financial resources, right? France has removed the franc in France. They use the euro, but in the francophone countries, the franc is being used. So France is really controlling very much these countries and their resources, and really colonialism is still there. Because of that, I think now a step must be taken to make sure that instead of doing it through coup d'etats and other, some steps must be taken to make sure that France actually decolonizes completely from this region of the 14 states that always have been happening. Remember, so many things have happened. Thomas Sankara died. What did they do? The French gave money to his best friend to kill him. Things like that is happening. So we have a serious challenge. So the France has to really behave very much, and is not behaving very well. And so these countries that are now the coup d'etats that have happened, over 8 coup d'etats, you can see that the relationship, the challenge is on both sides. Sometimes when the countries that wanted to be independent become strong, then the French also do coup d'etat against them too. So you have this kind of very complicated situations. So you have we have a challenge. So this challenge has to be resolved. Unless it's resolved, it's going to be a complicated. Why is the African Union so weak? Why couldn't the Francophone, Anglophone, Lusophone, right? This Arab phone, this kind of things should be stopped. There should be a unity. We have said there's African Union with 55 states, but why, if this is happening, African Union should be very strong and say to the French, to all the former colonial powers, to actually decolonize completely. That has not yet happened in Africa. So I think this is the reason why we still continue to have many, many coup d'etats. You know, since 1963, 246 coup d'etats have happened across Africa, and about 106 have been successful. And recently, from 2020, with the Francophone area, 8 coup d'etats have taken place. This is not right. This is really, and who is suffering? When the elephants fight, the grass suffers. The people, the only people are the ones that suffer, not the French, not the politicians, not the military leaders, all these things. So our people are suffering. This is wrong. I mean, this has to change. That's my suggestion.
Yeah, that's well said, Professor. I think the African Union needs to grow some teeth, because I think what is happening is just unfortunate. So before we take a short break, talk a little bit about the implementation of the trade agreement which was signed in Africa. How far have they gone in terms of implementing? Because I think if we have that agreement in play, I think it's going to help out in terms of overshadowing some of these challenges that France and others are imposing on these economies in Africa. How far has the implementation gone in terms of the African trade?
The free trade, African Free Trade Agreement is declared, and we are very good at declaring, but it's not yet implemented. The problem we have in Africa is that how can we implement trade agreements with each other if we are actually producing the same things? We all produce raw materials, agriculture products, and so on. So unless we also construct our relationship very strongly in terms of economic relationship, then the trade is not going to be very effective. Inter-European trade is over 70%. Inter-Asian trade is over 60%. Inter-African trade is almost between 10%, more than a little bit more than 10%. So we are not trading with each other. Inter-African trade relationship is very weak. Creating the free African trade is a good idea, but how to implement it requires that we actually construct the infrastructure, or the manufacture, the service sector, the transformation of the mineral and agriculture sector. Unless we do that and interconnections are happening, inter-African trade is not going to happen. We can talk about it, but to implement it would not be easy, because still the structure, the economic structure, our economic structure is actually still, we export our minerals and others add value to it, and then they sell the products to us, and then we buy at a higher price. We are in that situation now. To convert it completely, it means a total transformation, all right? To economic transformation, production system, a new value chain, right, is necessary. If to do that, then again, the African Union has to make rules to make sure this interrelationships on the economic level, on the trade level, on the production level, on the consumption level, on the market level, on the commercial level, all right? And all these things are done properly. That is not yet done properly. The trade, the declaration is good, but implementation requires serious action, and that action is not yet done. I think steps must be taken, very good steps must be, action must be taken to make sure this change can happen sooner than later. That's what my suggestion is. Thank you.
We're talking to Professor Mammo Muchie. Now we're going to transition and talk a little bit about the Ethiopian New Year celebration. Personally, I wasn't aware that there's a different calendar which is used in Ethiopia. And Professor, could you share a little bit, educate some of us who are not very knowledgeable in this area, and when the celebration is and who is participating? Is it only Ethiopia? Are there other countries that go by the same calendar?
No, I think the calendar is, I must first say to you, it was on September 12, 2023, that the Ethiopian calendar is September 1, 2016. So in other words, you are now 7 years behind. If you are, so you'll have 7 more years for you. and this calendar is very, very good, to be honest with you. It's a lot of people say, many big professors from Europe, America, and so on, have said it's superior to the Gregorian calendar that we're now using, and it's also built with the solar, lunar, and spiritual also connections. So it's very, very powerful, really, very well done, and it's linked to many thousands of years, over 4,000 years almost. And then at that time, Ethiopia was called Africa, Kamets. It's not just Ethiopia, the current country. It's Africa as a whole. So it's an African calendar, actually. So in fact, we should be thinking in terms of making this calendar really the African Union calendar too. We should have really, we should. It's an African calendar. It's not just Ethiopian calendar, and it's very well done, and it's very good. And I think it is in the Gregorian calendar, 30 days of September, April, June, and November. Well, the rest of 31, except February alone. February is 28 days. So, but in this calendar, in the this Ethiopian African calendar, the 12 months, there are only 30 days only. There's no change, 31 or 30 or 28, no. So then there's the extra days for 3 years, 5 days. Then the 4th year, now we're in the 4th year, it's called leap year. It's 6 days. So we have an extra almost 13th month, but 5 days for 3 years and 6 days for the 4th year. Something like that is what we have. It's clearly a very good calendar, and as I mentioned to you, it also means it's 7 years for all of you. It gives you more age. So I think it's a very good calendar, and I mean, I can explain everything to you if you need it. It's how it's different from the existing calendars, the Julian and the Gregorian calendar. And I think it's also, there are other countries that have different calendars. For example, Iran has, China, all of them have. But this calendar we have is very, very amazing, you know, because it's really well appreciated, recognized. Professors, you know, from Sweden and others, for example, have said that this is really a very good calendar. And they also have said that the Ethiopian alphabet, also the Giz language, in the ancient language, this is again a very ancient, again an African language, and they say it's even superior to the Latin Roman alphabet because it expresses any sound or anything, whereas and without any vowels. So it's not something like that. So I think what you asked me is very important, and happy New Year to you. We say in our language. So I just wish you the best, and all of us, in fact, all of our people, the African people in America, Caribbean, all of it, we should all know it, value it, recognize it, and know that extraordinary knowledge has been created by Africans. Really, on every sphere, on mathematics, astronomy, right, the calendar, alphabet, everything we have created, but we don't know that our own people have created all this knowledge. Our ancestors have done extraordinary things, trust me. Only philosophy, Ubuntu, many things like that, that will save the world has been created in Africa. And I think we should value our tradition, our culture, our knowledge, our spirituality. All these things have to be valued, our calendar, all right, and our alphabets, all right, everything like that. Even the mathematical system for the entire internet world, the binary logic mathematics, was created again from us in Africa. So I think, and the genius of geniuses is an African, Imhotep. He's incredible. What didn't he know? Everything. So we in Africa should value ourselves, know ourselves. We don't know ourselves. We inferiorize ourselves, and we mimic, and what others describe us as, we take it seriously, and not come to unite ourselves and really value ourselves, make change makers and game changers in this world. I think we should be like that. That's my suggestion. Thank you.
Well said, Professor. And as we conclude, I know you pretty much gave your summary of your main points that you want to put across to the African people, wherever they may be. But in just maybe a minute or so, your final words to our listeners in Africa and different parts of the world.
I think my suggestion, very strongly, I suggest that the whole world must really value humanity. We are one human family. We should be treating one another to live in one world community. It's not good to call some strangers some relatives. It's better that we really value and understand each other and really create a world with peace, security, love, happiness, innovation, knowledge, and imagination. I think that's what I really like us to do. Another thing I would like to recommend strongly is the politicians. I think politicians must learn to serve people. Above all else, their main criteria to seek power is to serve people, not their pocket, not their bank account. Their best salary is service to the people. If they don't do that, it's not good. In fact, there should be a criteria to make sure, real criteria, for everyone to be trained, for really qualify, get a certificate to actually to be politicians, to seek to do power. Sincerely, they must be not partocracy. You know, like not creating all these political parties and competition. This is wrong. We should be saying if they want to serve the people, like priests become priests because they do the gospel, they must also serve the people. If they are doing like that, they know how to do it, they qualify to do it with moral intelligence, emotional intelligence, intellectual intelligence, service intelligence. If they do it, then like that. So only those who serve with social justice must be in power. Others, no. If they are there for just for their own self-interest, no, they should not be included. I don't think we need to have all these competitions. It's not necessary. That's my suggestion, especially in Africa. We are just imitating many things. It's wrong. I think we should move out of this. All these coup d'etats, all these things I just mentioned to you, we should not have. All we need to do is people who serve, who are there for the people and not for their own pocket and for their own bank account. Their salary is to serve. That's my strong suggestion. If they do that, then they should be elected. If not, they should not be. Thank you very much.
Well said, Professor. I think we're going to leave it at that. There's a lot that we need to digest from your input. I strongly agree. We need politicians to be certified, to have a license, where, for instance, in academia, you are evaluated on either research, teaching, or service. I think
absolutely.
We need that. We need that for politicians. So I think I know you have to go. I appreciate your time. So we'll be in touch, Professor. And I think we need to have a follow-up conversation to this. So I thank you. I appreciate you, and look forward to the second interview. Thank you, Professor.
Thank you very much. I really appreciate it. You put it very nice. Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
Thank you. Bye-bye. Thank you. Thank you so much.